Hi everyone, Alexandra Judd, Jupiter returns here with your weekly astrology forecast for the week of the 18th to the 24th of January 2021. And this is one of the weeks that has been on my radar for some months. It's likely to be a week that is quite a pivotal or peak moment in the astrology, certainly of this year and potentially beyond. So it is one that I might go into in perhaps a little more detail. I'm hoping that my new format of putting timestamps on each day is helpful, just to kind of break it down, because there's a lot of information. I'm really well aware of that, and we're all, I suspect, given the astrology of the moment, we're all kind of feeling a little bit overwhelmed with the amount of information that is out there. So as I've mentioned before, the best way to get the most out of my videos is to watch it all the way through in one go first, or listen to it in the background whilst you're doing something else, and then revisit it each day using the timestamps, just so that you can have a little reminder of that section, you know, that piece of the puzzle, because there are, you know, it's important to know that the background context, I can't like repeat everything that's going on for every day of the week. But yeah, rather than just sort of give you a big overview, I thought that would be helpful just to break it down. So hopefully that's useful to you. So if you watch my, or if you're following me on Facebook, you'll know that if you've read my piece over the weekend, you'll know that we had the journey with the moon moving through Pisces all weekend. This has meant that the moon, which represents our emotions, our emotional world, our feeling nature, but also it represents the public, okay, the public at large, and it represents the sort of programmed reactivity, like how we react when things happen in the world. And so, you know, combined with Neptune, which has this very much deep connection with the collective, you know, the collective pool of consciousness. So essentially what we've got here is we've got two planets that really are vibing us in, you know, sensitizing us very much to the collective undercurrent, really. With what's happening with Neptune at this moment, which will become more important towards the end of the forecast. I'll give you the specifics around it, but we've got Neptune building into the square aspect with the nodes of the moon. And so what this is saying is that we're really being challenged as a collective at this point in time to find the balance between Sagittarius and Gemini, which is Jupiter, hopes, optimism, beliefs, politics, philosophy, and you know, just kind of like grand ideas, big ideas that aren't in much detail. And then on the other side we have Gemini, which is all about the details. It's all about the specifics and the nuts and bolts of things. And you know, it's our thinking processes. So we've got beliefs and thinking processes, and the point, the apex of this T-square that's being created at this time is Neptune. And Neptune in hard aspect like this brings us the challenges of dealing with Neptune energy, those being not seeing things as they really are. And, you know, it doesn't take a genius or an astrologer to see that in bucket loads around us at this point in time. You know, things are not clear, things are very confused, things are very deceptive. That's the key thing here is there's a lack of discernment, there's a lack of precision, there's a lack of clarity. So this is not a time to feel really confident and sure about something, you know, like, oh, Sagittarius up here is like, yeah, what I believe, that's the thing, you know. It's like, well, it could really well not be. And of course, Gemini, this is coming through in the way that people are thinking and the way that people are communicating. Gemini is Mercury. Mercury is the mind and the mouth, essentially. So this backdrop that we've had of the weekend of the moon going over this area and activating this really has just been washing up to the surface. Okay, it's like water rushing in somewhere. It brings things up as it fills up, you know, whatever it's forming in. So it's been bringing up to the surface the undercurrent of where these issues around Neptune's delusional effect is taking place. So it was an interesting thing to connect with and to see if you could identify. And I really hope that the journey I took you on with my writing helped to do that. So moving into this week then, we'll just clear that lot off for the moment. The moon is now gone into Aries. Okay. Aries, we're back in the land of fire. So for the next couple of days, the collective kind of feeling and our responsiveness and all of these things is hot-headed. All right, it's fiery, it's passionate. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, and therefore it likes to start things. It really wants to make something happen in a very impulsive way, because it's driven by Mars. Mars is the power behind Aries, and we're going to be having a load of Mars energy this week. So it's rash, it's impulsive, it doesn't think things through, and it wants to make something happen. You know, it wants to see an action taking place. So we might be feeling, because obviously what we don't have the facility in the middle of this pandemic and lockdown wherever you are in the world. Certainly here in the UK, we're pretty much under complete, you know, lockdown. There is minimal ability for us to feel like we can make things happen in our life, that we can initiate things and start things. It's kind of like everything's really held back. And of course, Aries is where we had the Mars retrograde in the second part of 2020. So as the moon continues through this area of the chart, through Aries, she's going to activate all that really kind of frustrated energy of, God, I just want to do something and I can't. It's really, really uncomfortable at this time. The moon is waxing, she's pulling away from the sun. So that means she's getting bigger and bigger if we see her in the night sky. And that means that as she increases in strength, as she's receiving more of the sun's light, she's having a greater and greater influence as she gets bigger and bigger, until we get to the next full moon, when that's the peak of her influence on us. So she's waxing, and at the moment, in the early part of today, she's creating a helpful sextile aspect to Saturn first at the beginning of Aquarius, and then a little bit later on in connection to Jupiter. So a sextile aspect means that it's a little bit easier for our moon to be connected to the energies of very practical, rational, stabilizing Saturn. And Jupiter is hope, belief, optimism, luck, opportunity, all of those good things. So, you know, we can tap into that with our feelings. We can feel like, okay, maybe there's just something small that I could do. You know, the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction really is about taking small steps forward. Jupiter wants to do things in a grand way. It wants to sail the whole world in a week. It wants to experience everything possible. Saturn, though, is limiting. So when these two guys are hanging out together, it's saying, well, okay, you can explore a bit, but it's going to be kind of a lot slower. It's going to be a lot more reserved. And we're really, really in that energy still of the Saturn-Jupiter great conjunction that we had at the winter solstice. So it's about saying, okay, all right, let's think of ways, let's strategize ways where you can feel like you're doing something. You can feel like you're initiating something and starting something. But it needs to have a longer term view. So just rein in Jupiter's exuberance a little bit with Saturn and just say, okay, let's go for a longer term thing. the conjunction that the moon is going to make when she gets to 5 degrees may actually already be while I'm recording this, in actual fact. The moon will be conjunct Chiron at this point today. Chiron, of course, being you know, that sensitive point where we have got a kind of a core wound of rejection and abandonment and feelings of inadequacy, essentially. And that might fit into this whole feeling of, I can't make anything happen out there in the world. I'm feeling so held back. It can feel like, you know, oh, and I'm so inadequate as well. That tapping is into that kind of victimhood thing off the back of all this Neptune energy too. You know, like, what's the point? So, you know, don't get sucked down into that. The good thing about this, if you were born between 1969 and 1971, if you're watching this, you will be moving into what's known as your Chiron return. So Chiron by transit here in Aries is going to be coming back to the same part in your chart as Chiron was when you were born. Okay, depending on the month you were born, but if you're born in between those 2 years, most likely you'll be experiencing your Chiron return. So every time now that the moon passes over Chiron, it's going to wash up those feelings to the surface of your Chiron wound. And essentially that's an invitation. It's an invitation to say, there's this part of you deep down in there that, you know, unless you live to beyond 100, this is only going to happen once in your life. Your Chiron return is something that's only going to show up, you know, roughly around the age 49 to 50. So, you know, it's the opportunity to do this piece of work. You know, it's the best opportunity to do this piece of work. So, and we can often go through quite profound moments that trigger our need to do our inner healing. And that can often be through a core rejecting moment, a moment in our lives where we feel utterly abandoned or crushed or just not good enough. And it can also be a major health crisis. And I suspect, obviously, with what's going on, that's going to be the situation for a lot of people. But the Chiron return can often show up in a physical health issue that is trying to get our attention to the inner world, because we're also focused on what's going on in the macrocosm rather than the microcosm. And so if the moon is triggering these feelings for you, and particularly if you were born in those years, this is an invitation to say, okay, let's spend a little bit of time exploring that pain from an objective point of view, you know, and just being, you know, able to sort of bring some comfort to it. The moon is about comfort. The moon is mothering energy. It's nurturing energy. So it's time to mother the inner child who's wounded. You know, that would be my interpretation. Yes, you're going to feel it more, but channel the moon's energy in that way of, how do I mother myself? If I was my own daughter, if I was my own son, how would I nurture and care for myself, you know, as a child experiencing this pain? So just, that's obviously for a small section of people watching, but it can tune us into the whole vibe of needing healing. But that's just so prevalent right now, obviously, with the virus. So it's not super helpful to point out. The big news today is we have a square aspect going on. And the square aspect, and we're going to have lots of square aspects this week, but this particular one is between Jupiter, the ruler of the South Node at this point in time, ruler of Sagittarius, and Uranus over there in Taurus. Uranus is the rebel. He wants to bring change. He wants to bring very eruptive, sudden, fast energy of change and of kind of not being able to tolerate things as they are. Saturn's all about keeping things the same, stable, reliable, you know, all that good stuff. Whereas Uranus is just like, yeah, but that's really old now. That's stuck in a rut. That's not helping me grow. That's not helping me evolve as a person. So Uranus comes along to shake us out of those ruts. Okay, so it's a very destabilizing energy. And particularly in a fixed sign, which Taurus is, it's fixed earth. Taurus doesn't want to change for anybody. The Taurus energy is like things like this, and that's that. And if I just show up every day and I just do that, then the world is comfortable and I can cope with it and everything's great. Uranus in Taurus, therefore, isn't, you know, they don't merge really well. Jupiter also is in a fixed sign, hence the square. So Aquarius is also a fixed sign. So, and Jupiter is an expansive energy. It too wants growth. It wants to learn. It wants to explore. So these are both very kind of expansive energies, and they are very, very contained within these fixed signs, because fixed signs don't, you know, lend themselves very well to expansion, really. So this is energy that is taking place at 6 degrees. So look in your own chart, you'll see where this is showing up in your life, depending on the house it's falling in. These planets are both at 6 degrees. So anything really from, I would say, let's say 3 to 9, an orb of 3 to 9 degrees of any of the fixed signs. So that's Aquarius, Taurus, Leo, and Scorpio. If you've got planets in those places, they're going to be feeling it the most. So we've got this guy who wants change and he wants to evolve and he wants to be done with the old. And we've got Jupiter who's just like really optimistic and wants to do things in a really big, far-reaching, grand way. And they're both being absolutely stuck and they don't like being stuck. The square aspect is one of tension. Don't think that equates to bad. It doesn't. It just means that it's going to really get our attention. Tension gets attention. So what we do with that tension is the important thing. This is where the free will comes in. You know, astrology is only half the picture. Your level of consciousness, your level of free will, how you meet the energy is down to you, and it's down to everyone out there. We'll see how it plays out with different people. But this is just saying, can you please do something? You know, that tension is just provoking. It's drawing your attention into these areas and saying, you know, you've got to do something here. Something needs to happen here. So again, it's more of that kind of moon in Aries, I need to make something happen. It's basically a call to action, essentially, for good or bad. So this aspect is building up. It's what we call applying throughout Monday, the 18th. And it's going to perfect. So they will be precisely in the exact same part of the degrees at 11 p.m. here in the UK. All right. Now, alongside, it's further stimulated by the fact that Mars over here, also not super happy in Taurus, because Mars is just like, yeah, fire, let's make things happen. It's speed, it's like impulsive, it's, yeah, let's go, it's mojo, it's adrenaline, you know. Again, in Taurus, it's just kind of like, Taurus likes to plod, you know. This isn't race car territory. So Mars is feeling pretty held back himself as well now. And the moon being in Mars's sign is tapping us into that. So all of this pent up, frustrated energy, Mars being alongside Uranus is going to essentially be the signature of this week, and I'll talk more about that as we move through. But this is, you know, joining in the anger, potentially, violence, potentially, shock, speed, anything sharp, hot, pointy, or fast is Mars, essentially. So watch out for all of those things, because in combination with Uranus, it's going to be very unpredictable. unpredictable, shocking, and potentially, you know, explosive. Mars is also fire, so fire, sudden explosions, that kind of thing. And when we have a hard aspect to Jupiter, that's the expansive quality of it. It reaches that bit further. It has that bit more of a, you know, of a broadening effect. So these expansive energies that are very provocative at this time, right at a time when everybody's worlds have got very, very much smaller and very, very limited. You know, Jupiter loves the horizon, and Uranus is like right out into space. You know, Uranus rules astrology. It rules things that are really out of the norm and really kind of like far out. You know, like the hippies used to say, far out, man. And that's Uranus energy, because it's just like so far from convention. It's so far from home and what we recognize. So it's very much about the absolute outer reaches of possibility, which is a wonderful thing, right? It helps us to create new ideas. It's really inventive. It's cutting edge. It pushes the limits. It pushes the boundaries and enables us to have some really like incredibly creative, powerful breakthroughs in terms of progression, be that in your individual life or as a collective. So there's lots and lots and lots of progressivity, but we have to consider that, you know, our worlds have become so small. You know, the four walls of our homes are all too familiar. And I'll share something about my personal life here. Is I have some chronic health issues, and for a time they got so bad that I actually was, you know, confined to my bed for a long time. And I know of the frustrations of when the outer world is just gone. You know, there's just this small inner space. And I think that the digital world, which is a Uranian thing, has become the battleground. Mars, yeah, absolutely, the battleground of beliefs. Mars square Jupiter, but it's become the replacement for an outer world in the actual reality of our lives right now. So our desires and our frustrations about not having the ability to have that connection with the outer world through our bodies, which is Taurus, like physically being present in, you know, another country, is, you know, it's really, really, really hard for human beings to cope with that. And so there's this projection of all of that frustration, projection being a Neptunian thing, into the digital world. And the problem with that is that, you know, it's incredibly limited in itself. It's limited to the particular audience that you have that could well be on a completely different wavelength. So what we're finding is that, you know, Aquarius energy is all about working together. It's about the tribe. It's about community. And unfortunately, what's happening is, rather than this frustrated energy of growth, of breakthroughs, of progress, of evolution, being channeled into our inner worlds, because that's really all we can control at this point in time, or arguably ever. To see if we can explore and have an adventure into our own personal evolution. That's really uncomfortable. People don't like doing their inner work. And so, you know, it's getting projected out there into the digital world. But as someone who's kind of gone through a period of essentially solitary confinement, and having, you know, an absolute cutting off from the outside world for a prolonged period of time, I would encourage you to direct these energies inwardly. you will go through leaps and bounds in terms of personal growth that will stand you in good stead for many, many years. You know, this is the transformative energy that led to massive, massive changes in my life, which you're all benefiting from now because I'm an astrologer instead of a financial advisor. And yeah, so it's that free will. How are you going to meet this energy? Do you want to capture this incredible, powerful energy and use it to push yourself into your own greater wisdom? Jupiter is wisdom. It's the truth seeker. It wants to know everything that is possible to know in terms of the highest understanding of life. These are the philosophers and the gurus and the mentors in our community, Jupiter. People that we can learn from, and we can learn so much from ourselves. We have this within us that we forget that. And Uranus is just saying we can have a breakthrough here. We can crack through all the bullshit layers that we've put around our own inner guru. We can break through that now and discover, you know, this cosmos within ourselves, within our own microcosm. And that's an incredible, beautiful thing that will serve the collective, that will serve the community so, so much more than, you know, just falling out on Twitter about, you know, what your out there beliefs might be, which essentially is what I'm seeing a lot of. The thing about Uranus being connected with outer space, you know, anyone who's an Aquarius or has prominent Uranian energy in their chart will know that it can be, you can feel like a weirdo, you can feel like a freak because it's so unusual. It doesn't do convention, doesn't Uranus? It's not interested in the consensus. It wants to be weird, it wants to be different, it wants to be individual. And so it can feel like an alien. It's not only associated with space in that way, but it can feel like an alien, it can feel like an outsider down here on Earth as well. And the problem is, you know, in this kind of hard aspect, it can actually alienate itself, and I'm seeing a lot of this happen too, particularly in the digital world. You know, right, that's it, I'm off. And the problem is, you know, Aquarius understands that diversity is a massive, massive strength. Okay, it's the tribe. You know, Uranus understands that everyone is equally important, and they're important because of their differences. And when we come to Taurus rules our food and nature. It's essentially tuning us into the ecosystem. And we all know that variety is so, so crucial when it comes to having a healthy ecosystem, and also the gut, you know, through food. We hear a lot these days about, you know, healthy bacteria, and how, in fact, even with coronavirus now, there's a lot of research being done that's showing, you know, those with greater variety of gut bacteria are having a better, you know, way of fighting off the illness, because it gives us strength. There's strength in diversity. Now, unfortunately, when Uranus kind of gets itself into trouble like this, it can do the exact opposite. It can just alienate itself, and it's just like splinter groups coming off here, there, and everywhere. And all that means is that people are separated into a pool of just the same. This is what people talk about when they talk about the echo chamber. If you want to just be surrounded by people with the exact same views as you and the exact same approach on life, and you can't think outside of that limited kind of way, then you're essentially in this echo chamber of whatever you say just gets bounced back to you from a variety of sycophants. And where's the good in that? You know, there's no diversity. There's no opportunity for growth or change or progress. It's just, you know, taking your ball home and deciding like not to play with other people. Well, you're not going to have any fun then, are you? So try and think of it as a healthy ecosystem, just like the healthy gut system needs diversity, and we all benefit from that. It makes us stronger and more resilient. So resist the temptation to separate. Okay, welcome the opportunity to look at things from a different point of view. And I know that will be really, really challenging this week, particularly because Mars is involved in Mars's ego. Mars is like, I need to be right. I need to be the winner. You know, Mars is competitive. And so it's hard to suspend that aspect of humanity that just wants to be right and wants to win. And, you know, at all costs, or any costs sometimes, hence the anger and the violence that we've seen. You know, when Mars ingressed into Taurus, people died when we had the violence at Capitol Hill in the US. That was Mars ingressing Taurus. So yeah, try and suspend the ego. Jupiter likes to look at things from a higher perspective, a more wise perspective. And being in Aquarius, that's an air sign, so it can facilitate a little bit more objectivity around things. Like, take the personal stuff out of this and just, you know, look at it from the witness perspective, essentially. So this all kind of it kind of kicks off today as we move through the day and into the evening. That's really what we've got building up in the background. So on the downside, we've got far-reaching beliefs, essentially, that are going to be powerfully put forward, enthusiastically presented to the world. And these can be about our world leaders. You know, Jupiter is our leaders, politicians, royalty, those kinds of things. So far out beliefs about leaders. It's pretty obvious. On the good side, though, this is the perfect opportunity for exploring and experimenting with your own personal philosophies from an objective point of view, just to have a rummage around in there, go on a little journey. You know, we can't go on holiday out there, so let's go on holiday in here. Let's go and explore, see what we can find that we might not have, places we might not have been before. There's a lot in there. It's a big, wide world in there. Lots of undiscovered places. Right, Tuesday the 19th then. So we have now the Sun at the very last degree of Capricorn. Okay, the 29th degree of the sign, and as you'll know, possibly, that's a really powerful degree, an anaretic degree as it's known. So it's almost like the Sun has been drawing our attention to Capricorn matters. So these are matters of the structure of our society. These are matters of the material accomplishments that we make in the world. These are matters of our status and, you know, corporations and the people kind of who have the power, you know, the power structures of our world. And our personal reputations as well. So the Sun has been highlighting all this stuff moving through Capricorn, and now it's kind of like, right, this is my last day. This is my last day in Capricorn. So anything that is yet to be sort of finished there, if I haven't really drawn the world's attention to this stuff, this is the day really when that kind of agenda is going to be more in focus. All right, so a very powerful kind of Saturnian Capricorn energy around. Yeah, and just bringing our attention, it's highlighting, it's a bloody big spotlight is the Sun, and it's just pouring our attention on the current structure. How have we organized ourselves, you know, as a species? And in your own chart, you know, look to where Capricorn is, you know, what house does it occupy in your chart? What area of life has your attention been more focused on? Because this is kind of like the last day of that month where the focus really is in that direction. The moon on Tuesday is going to be making quite a supportive aspect to, so the moon's still in Aries, fire sign Aries, having progressed through Aries a little bit, is now connecting with Mercury. Okay, so this is increasing the need for dialogue. We'll feel like talking, feel moon like talking, Mercury. So there's going to be a little bit more dialogue around, but bear in mind, you know, it's a fired up Martian moon. So some of that conversation might be a little bit on the feisty side. But yeah, generally an increase in dialogue and conversation. It is supportive, this sextile aspect here, it's supportive of us having a better way of articulating our feelings at this point in time. So if we're ordinarily not very good at putting what's going on in the inner world into words, this is the kind of energy that will support that. So we'll be able to communicate just that little bit better about how we're feeling about things. And there may be quite a nostalgic desire to have communication, to reach out to people, to pick up the phone or write a letter to someone that you haven't been in contact with for a little while, something like that. It's just this quite nice feelings of the past tend to go along with the moon as well, history. And so having a communication with someone in your history might be facilitated at this time as well. That's taking place around 17 degrees. So 17 degrees of Aries, 17 degrees of Aquarius. And again, that's tapping us back into the part of the chart where we had that Mars retrograde at the end of last year, just reminding us perhaps of some of the work that we did there, some of the inner work that we did on connecting with our own Mars. It's a remembering, which is what Mercury's really good at doing, reminding us of things. It's a reminder of that work that we did that said, you know, what does it look like to be a hero? What does being a warrior really look like? Does it mean like going around attacking loads of people, being defensive and brutal? Or does it mean having a strong sense of self, a strong and powerful sense of self, and owning our desires and our impulses and capturing, you know, the fire that has, and using it in a constructive way, in a way that is engaged with our heads and not just coming from survivalistic impulses. So if you did that work with Mars retrograde, this will just be a little quiet reminder. Just remember who you really are. You're not a hungry tiger on the prowl for something to attack. All right, you're a powerful creature. Yes, you are, but own it so it doesn't own you, essentially. Then, having progressed through Capricorn, the sun around 9 p.m, I think it is UK time, the sun will ingress Aquarius. This is the moment where, to my mind, things really, really start to ramp up now. When any of the planets or lights, in this case, ingress a sign, it's kind of like they do have quite a dramatic entrance, all right? So it's almost like all of the planets that are contained within that sign, so any planets that you have in the sign of Aquarius or in aspect to the planets in the sign of Aquarius, or angles. When a planet ingresses, so when the sun moves in, they're all going to be like, oh, hello, the sun's here. You know, and any kind of transits that the sun is going to make as it's moving through that sign, they'll now be stimulated. All right, they'll be woken up. It's like, oh, we're going to have to do something in the next month as the sun moves through. Like, they're like, oh yeah, okay, we got to spring to life here. So those ingress points are really powerful. What's all the more powerful about this particular ingress is that 0 degrees of Aquarius was where we had the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction on the winter solstice. That very, very, very powerful meeting point that starts off a new 20-year cycle of social structure, social change, social organization. So it's the sun moving in over this point now is just really, really, really activating all of that energy off again. What were the intentions? You know, what were the seeds that you planted around the time of the winter solstice on the 21st of December? Either intentionally or unintentionally, consciously or unconsciously, what was going on in your life? The sun is now going to come in and reactivate all of that stuff. So it's very, very, very powerful, more powerful than normally. So yeah, and that starts a 30-day journey of the sun going through Aquarius, which of course means that it's going to conjunct Saturn and Jupiter and activate the squares that are happening down to Mars and Uranus. We're going to, as the weeks progress, there's going to be more and more energy in Aquarius. An unusual amount of energy in Aquarius in actual fact. And that's really good because that's very objective energy, as I've mentioned, and it's very much about people coming together and pushing humanity forward in positive ways, in ways that are about equality and about being done with the old hierarchical systems of, you know, having to have a boss at the top, which is what we have with Capricorn. Aquarius likes to do things on a more of an equal footing. And goodness knows, I think we need a lot more of that. It's charitable energy as well, humanitarian energy. So yeah, hopefully we can move in those kinds of directions. It's also the digital realm, so increases in the artificial intelligence, in more progressive forms of communication, anything to do with space, anything to do with the latest innovations and you know, inventions, essentially. So the sun's going to really highlight this stuff, and in fact the need for it. I think that's going to be another aspect of the light that the sun's going to shine there. So moving then into Wednesday. Wednesday really is the peak of the explosive energy. You know, sun is fire, so we've got a little bit more fire energy happening. So much in Aquarius, I can't fit it all in. What we have on Wednesday is we have, this is around 7 p.m. UK time. So the build up, I mean, we're building into it now, but the build up will be throughout the day. It will be getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, UK time. So what we have here is we have the moon is going to ingress Taurus. So moving out of Aries, it's going to ingress Taurus. She's now in the quarter square aspect with the sun. So moon was renewed, rebirthed. We had the new moon in Capricorn a week beforehand. And let's not forget that new moon was in the sign of Capricorn alongside Pluto. It was a very, very powerful new moon. And that means that each of the most prominent aspects that she'll make, so the full moon and the quarter moons of this particular monthly cycle, are going to carry that energy of Pluto with them. Pluto is intensity. Pluto is death and rebirth. It's crisis energy. So she's carrying that along with her, essentially. And this is the first quarter square, which we refer to as being the crisis of manifestation. So we have the new moon, which is where we might say, okay, I have an idea of what I want to do. I want to make something happen. It's that creative point where feminine and masculine come together and they want to start something new. 7 days on from that, we have this crisis point where it's kind of like every possible hurdle and boundary and blockage to that coming about is put in the way to test, you know, your ability to problem solve, to make it really happen, to test how determined you really are to bring that thing into being, the crisis of manifestation. How much do you really want that? So there's a lot of that kind of energy around it. It's really going to push people to go for what they want or what they think they want, carrying the weight of Pluto with it. So that's the real backdrop of the public sentiment, because it's the moon. Also, the moon traveling over that point in Taurus. Of course, this was where we had Mars ingress into Taurus, which gave rise to the attacks at the Capitol in the US, which was a foretelling of, you know, the energy that we're kind of moving into this week, and particularly on this day. So it's stimulating that energy, and of course the moon is moving quickly, so she's moving up to meet up with Mars and Uranus as well. Then on the other side of the square, what we have is we have Saturn and Jupiter. So the reason that it's even more profound on Wednesday is that this is the moment when Mars and Uranus are exact. Sorry, I've just remembered, Uranus actually turned direct last week, and I've still got him showing as retrograde. Apologies for that. So yeah, we've got Mars and Uranus meet together in the evening in the UK time, I think. Well, you can work out the time differences for the US, because of course this is the inauguration day of the new president in the US, and there is an expectation therefore of violence off the back of what happened when Mars went into Taurus, and all of this stuff has been re-stimulated again, but in a really much bigger way, unfortunately. Uranus is shocking violence, potentially explosive. It's not great. It's really not great. There's always different potentialities of how this can play out. Like I said earlier, how we meet this energy with our free will is up to us. If everyone in the world could just understand the astrological influences that they're under, the mood music in the background of their lives, then I think we would all be a lot better at saying, oh, hang on, you know, I'm just feeling feisty because I'm listening to some death metal music, you know. If I just turn that channel or wait for that song to end, then I won't feel like that, and I don't need to act it out. These are influences, that's all they are, you know. We don't blame the planets for anything. Sometimes the influence like this is going to be very powerful, it's going to be very strong. But if you're watching this, if you're a fan of astrology, then you have no excuse because you're empowered by this knowledge, Jupiter, knowledge, wisdom. Okay, so if this takes hold of you, find a way to ground. The fact that this Mars-Uranus conjunction is happening in Taurus, it kind of rules our body and our bodily senses, so we can anticipate feeling very, you know, nervous, agitated, anxious, you know, having palpitations, feeling really restless, all of those kinds of things, and really viscerally feeling it in our bodies. So really important to ground, you know, get out in nature. Remember, you know, to connect with the earth, and remember that's what you're really about. All this air energy, you know, Aquarius it's all this mental stimulation. And there's just so much of it. We really have to get grounded. And when you put your feet in the ground, it's literally just like allowing that to discharge out of your body. So paying attention to your body, doing what you can to ground is going to be really, really important on Wednesday. Don't get sucked into the drama. you know, as much as you can, as much as you can. So we've got the first quarter crisis, and we have the perfection of the Mars-Uranus energy there. That's going to be kept active essentially all throughout the night. So, you know, not a great night to be an insomniac, probably. You have my commiserations if you're one. I'm in the gang. It's not much fun. But yeah, it's not peaceful, calm, restful night energy. So the reason for that obviously is the moon is going to be moving her way through Taurus, and therefore she's going to be applying and then moving over Uranus and Mars as well, just kind of keeping that whole vibe very much alive. And it pulls through then into Thursday morning. So on Thursday morning, all of this stuff is still very much active. Mars is moving fast. So, you know, Mars is kind of shifting along, starting to separate from Uranus, but, you know, it's going to be a little while yet before we see that so much. And the moon obviously is moving. Whoopsie, I've lost her. There she is. The moon is moving quite quickly as well, but very, very much present as we move into Thursday morning. Thursday, of course, ruled by Jupiter. And so it's going to be exacerbating or facilitating more of the Jupiterian energy, which is politics, beliefs, philosophies, and righteousness, you know, big-headedness. That's unfortunately the downside of Jupiter in a hard aspect is, you know, it's that energy of, I'm right, I know everything, knowledge. It's not very humble, Jupiter in hard aspect sometimes, if we let it get carried away. So everything still is extremely active. Mars is now at 7 degrees of Taurus and is applying into a square with Jupiter. So the need to be right, my beliefs are right, I am justified, I am righteous. You know, this is kind of the energy. Jupiter rules the law and the legal system as well. So that's very much, you know, with Mars here in this hard aspect, it's kind of like this real belief that you're right to act from ego or from anger or from intolerance. You know, it is justified. People will genuinely believe this because they've kind of lost themselves. You know, they've got lost on Neptune Sea at the moment of not seeing things quite as they are. And I, you know, as I've mentioned in previous forecasts, I really do think that right now everyone needs something to believe in, and there's not a lot of choices, not a lot of healthy choices to pick from. And this is why my emphasis is always on doing that inner work, because, you know, in a world where there's really not many people to hold in high esteem out there within popular reach, just be one of them yourself, you know, like put your energy into being the change, you know. Remember the bee. If you watched my year ahead forecast, you'll know what the bee is all about. So yeah, you work on you, be the change that you want to see in the world. If there isn't something that's worth believing in, don't just align yourself with any old thing. Use some discernment, please. It's severely lacking at this point in time. So one of the good things about, one of the range of potentialities when we have energy like this Mars-Jupiter square, if your starting point in your natal chart with Mars is, you know, that perhaps you don't have a lot of Mars energy, you're not very confident, you're not very outgoing, you're not very decisive, you know, you're not very good at sort of taking action, or you tend to sort of stay held back. With this aspect to Jupiter, it could actually give you a boost of your confidence, all right, and your ability to make a decision, to be decisive. It could really kind of like stimulate some courage within you if courage has been lacking. So, you know, all of these aspects really do depend on what's the starting point. You know, if you're full of Mars energy already, then an extra dose of Mars in hard aspects, probably not a great thing. But if you could do with a bit more Mars, if you could do with a little bit more fire in your belly, then this is actually going to be a really good day for you, where you might feel more stimulated, where you might feel, oh, sod it, you know, I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to put myself out there, that kind of energy. So feeling a bit pumped up, a bit more confident, a bit more courageous, a bit more inclined to take risks. That could be a good thing. Could be a really, really ungood thing as well. An amusing example, because I imagine by the time we've got to Wednesday, we could probably all do with some amusement. And, you know, life is very serious right now, but I like to give examples of people who carry these planetary signatures in their charts. And the square between Jupiter and Mars was carried by Henry VIII. So it's kind of like, if remember I say Mars is things that cut, things that separate, like an axe. And Jupiter is kind of like lots of. So it's kind of like, yeah, we'll do lots of beheadings, essentially. So sorry to the victims of Henry VIII. Sorry, but yeah, it's kind of that energy. It's like the confidence to wield an axe or a sword at this time is something that we might see in other people, unfortunately. So just bring to mind Henry VIII. Do I want to be Henry VIII? No, I don't. But I would quite like to feel the confidence and the boost and the encouragement to move my life forward in a healthy and constructive way that needs a little bit more kind of oomph, perhaps. Yeah. Extra oomph. Friday then. Okay, Friday. What have we got going on with Friday? I mean, all of these aspects are still, like, you know, active throughout the whole week. I'm just pointing out the peak points in their journeys. So Friday, this is really important. We're coming back to Neptune. All right. Neptune here in the middle of Pisces. Now, if you are having a Neptune transit, a profound Neptune transit at this point in time, this could be quite a pivotal moment for you. What do I mean by that? Is like, is Neptune crossing over an angle in your chart? Like, is it crossing over your ascendant or your descendant or your MC or your IC? All right, because that can be an area of your life where you've been experiencing a lot of confusion and a lot of dissolving change, and potentially some betrayal and some losses to deception, either from other people deceiving us or through us deceiving ourselves in some way. Neptune is a bubble, and particularly at this moment in time, it's a very large bubble. And unfortunately, you know, the bubble bursts, and you know, the rose tinted glasses get taken off your face, and it's like, oh my God, what was I thinking? So, but if you've been having a Neptune transit to an important part of your chart, it's really been calling you to make a change in that area of your life, and a change in respect of bringing in a greater degree of faith, a greater degree of spirituality into that aspect of your life, more compassion, more forgiveness, or for some, the opposite of that. So am I too forgiving? Am I too compassionate? You know, do I come a cropper by making a victim of myself, by, you know, rolling myself out as a doormat for people to use and abuse? We can be too forgiving as well as not forgiving enough. And so these kind of these Neptune transits will focus us in on, you know, when we need to readjust, essentially, in that part of our lives. Now, This is really important for everyone though, whether you've got a Neptune transit going on or not. If you do, it's just that bit more powerful, because this is the moment when Neptune now gets to the same degree as the fated points, the North Node in Gemini, the South Node in Sagittarius, all right? So we've got 19 degrees, so this is 8 p.m. on UK time. So we'll be feeling more and more of that Neptune emphasis building as we come through the day, of this, you know, just feeling lost at sea, just feeling like, whoa. It can feel like really disillusioning energy, like we are God forsaken, like God is forsaken. It's like, what the hell is going on? You know, life is just crazy. And we can really feel like that. Now, why this is important is that the square aspect to the nodes is saying to us as a collective, you know, we are trying to find the balance between where we've come from in the past, Sagittarius, and where we're going to in the future, more Gemini. So Sagittarius is, you know, religions and cultures and the beliefs and philosophies that come along with that, the big far-reaching ideas, and the global world. All right, so globalization, world travel, you know, all the big far-reaching stuff, higher education. And Gemini is more local. It's like saying, no, keep it in your little neighborhood and get specific about stuff. Get like, you know, all these big ideas, pare it down. How does that actually look? How does that work? You know, break it down into something that makes some kind of logic. It isn't just an ideology. That's the area of the past, okay? And it's not all bad. You know, we need to integrate what's good about that, but we can learn from history where these big, broad ideologies that have been put out there, where have we come unstuck with that stuff in the past? And that might be the opposite side, the lack of discernment. Mercury rules Gemini. Mercury wants detail. So have we scrutinized it? Have we pulled it apart? Have we applied some critical thinking? Critical thinking isn't just like attaching yourself to something that runs contrary to the consensus. You know, a lot of people make that mistake, I've noticed lately. Critical thinking is just being able to, you know, sit with anything and just completely objectively, not getting emotionally drawn into it at all, just look at it like a scientist. You know, where's the absolute specifics of this? How would that work? Okay, here's an idea. Now show me how that works. Show me how you can make that work in reality rather than just in the world of concept. And unfortunately, Neptune has this all blurred up at the moment. This is going to be a peak moment then, as Neptune comes into the exact same degree that the nodes are at, which is 19 degrees. This square aspect will then perfect, but this is like a peak moment in that. The perfection comes on the 26th, so into next week. And you know, this is really a call to clarity at a time when it's going to feel like there's anything but that. So spiritual practice is really going to be helpful. Getting into contact with source, whatever that is for you, is going to be really helpful at this time, because you know, this is Neptune energy. This isn't about ego. This is about, you know, the world beyond the human incarnation, and the things that we do now really go so vastly beyond the individual world. It's part of our fate, it's part of our destiny at this time. You know, these are the guys that are kind of directing the show from up above. These are the guys that make our eclipses happen. As we move into the year, we'll be seeing those taking place. So an important moment in time. At the same time, which is also quite lovely, quite helpful, we have Venus over there in Capricorn, And she's going to be creating a trine aspect to the moon. Yeah, Venus and then Pluto afterwards. So the moon is going to be, yeah, speaking with both of these in turn. So moon, Venus is lovely energy. It's tapping us into our value system, all right, into our heart. What is it, you know, as we move forward as a collective into our fate, what are the values that we're going to take with us? You know, Venus in Capricorn tends to have more materialistic values. She likes money, she likes status symbols, she likes cars and houses, and she likes being in a position, or she sees a value in positions of authority, people who are in positions of authority, people who are older and wiser. She likes tradition. Venus in Capricorn tends to have quite traditional tastes, you know, in decor and the way that you dress and all of these kinds of things. These are all Venusian ideas. So, you know, it's going to be, you know, yes, our heart, our values, the things that we decide are worthy, we're going to be tapped into those. So again, it's going to be a case of let's discern what's good about that. You know, there's so much that's great about Capricorn. We need leaders. We need strong people who are resilient. You know, this is a really tiring time in humanity, and we need that resilience that Capricorn has, that steadfastness that says, whatever you throw at me, I can keep going. And that's what Capricorns are like. You know, that's awesome. There's loads to love about Capricorn. It's very practical as well. It's very material. We need material structures to give us the support, the protection, the protective support in order for our young people to flourish, for example. And for creativity, Venus to flourish, and for love to flourish, we need a container for that stuff. So this is going to be tapping us into, you know, what about those values of the Capricorn realm are something that we want to take forward. You know, moon in Taurus is ruled by Venus. You know, Venus rules Taurus. So there's a lovely connection here that's going on. But again, we might see some of the downsides of that, because a trine isn't good. It's just saying these guys are talking to each other really easily. They can just connect really easily. So it might actually pull through, and with Taurus being a financial sign, it might just pull through, like, you know, a washing up to the surface of some of the more superficial you know, aspects of, you know, what we value in terms of, you know, I have greater sense of worth if I am the best at something. It's that kind of thing. Or if I'm the boss, or if I've got the you know, if I've got the most expensive car on the drive, that kind of thing. But it should be quite romantic as well. There will be the connection going on at the same time between Venus, and there's lots of stuff going on now, isn't there? Sorry about that. We're applying into a connection there as we move into Saturday, so I'll talk about it more then. But yeah, quite romantic energy, and it's tapping us into what's actually really important to us. What are the things that we really value, that need to continue forward with us as we evolve as a species. So going into, oh, and then, sorry, pardon, the moon will then move, that trine will move as the moon moves forward and will be tapped into Pluto. So that's the energy of bringing those values, bringing those appreciations, the things that are in our hearts, into how we are transforming this structure, Capricorn, as we move forward. And remember, you know, the moon was birthed alongside Pluto. This new moon in Capricorn was birthed alongside Pluto. So they're now having quite an easy conversation with each other and just checking in, like, oh, how far have we got with this whole thing now? And so that could be quite helpful, essentially, in bringing about change. And off the back of that kind of courageous energy of Mars squaring Jupiter, if you've been trying to make a big change in your life, you know, it's these days that you could see those things falling into place and actually starting to just flow, you know, that the transformation you wanted just kind of flows really easily without you having to push it too much, which is always nice. So as we move then, let's just clear it all off because it's getting a bit muddy. As we move into Saturday the 23rd, the moon now moves into Gemini. So again, we've got an increase of the air energy. So even more mental stimulation. And it's busy. Gemini is a busy bee, likes to be all over the place. So we might feel a sense of busyness. One thing that's really stabilizing though is we have the sun up there in Aquarius, fellow air sign. So initially on Saturday, we'll get a trine aspect between the moon and the sun. So this is nice, this is balancing energy. This is the feminine and the masculine working in just working well together, you know, getting along really well. So the kind of the rational sides of us and the emotional sides of us, responsive sides, they're kind of flowing a little bit more easily with each other. So not one or the other has got, you know, their primary kind of slice of the pie. So that's nice. That's very balancing kind of energy. And as we progress through into the evening, then that's when we'll see that sextile aspect. There we go, between Venus and Neptune. So that's gorgeous. Neptune essentially being the higher octave of Venus, kind of like Venus on steroids. This is amazing for creativity. If you have any kind of creative outlet, music or art or, you know, creative writing or song, anything, this really is the energy to capture, particularly I think with the moon being in Gemini, bringing our feelings into the mental space and allowing us to do something quite practical with it. You know, Gemini is quite practical. It wants to do something with the hands, all right, the pairs, all right, it's the twins, so the pairs. So see if you can get your hands in some way to create something from this beautiful, creative, flowing energy. It's also very romantic energy. We can get swept up along with, you know, ideas of idealism, romanticism, that kind of thing, which is lovely. Just bear in mind, you know, it's likely to be sweeping you along with it. So just keep your feet on the ground a little bit, because, you know, Venus is now applying to Pluto. So Venus is going to go through a little bit of a death and rebirth process in the near future. And that means, you know, that they're potentially, well, you can't have a rebirth without a death, can you? So just bear that in mind. Being so close to Pluto as well is going to make some of this feeling quite intense. You know, we might get really, really swept up in the current of romantic passion. But yeah, try and channel that into some kind of creative method that will mean that you don't come a cropper by any kind of the downsides of Pluto as Venus applies to her, which can be, you know, deception and being taken advantage of, and some of the less pleasant things that we don't like. We also have, let me see. Yeah, because we've got the combination there of earth energy and water energy and a waxing moon. So she's getting bigger and bigger and bigger now on her way to becoming full moon in Leo. This is good manifesting energy. So if you're trying to manifest anything creatively, it's a really good energy to tap into. Any kind of transformation of your love life or your relationship with anyone, actually, you know, you can really kind of tap into this calling into yourself. Imagine the best possible outcome of how things might go through a transformative process for you. That would be a really nice way to capture this energy. Last day, Sunday the 24th. Sunday the 24th, we have the moon as she's moving through Gemini. She's now activating the nodal axis there, bringing our attention once more to that square where we started the week with the square from Neptune to the node. So you can see this really is the background energy of it all. Moon applying to the square to Neptune, conjunct the north node. So she's really going to be more about, you know, while she's activating the whole axis there, she's really going to be trying to draw us more towards the north node. She's waxing across the north node. She's showing more of the north node, please. So more Mercury, more detail, more discernment, keep it local, keep it, you know, real. As much as you can. That's going to perfect in the late evening. One thing here that's really good is we have the sun. You know, the sun's the ruler of the daytime. So the sun is about practicality. It's about rationality. The moon, she owns the nighttime. She owns our emotions. All right. So that's irrational, really. And so what we have this day is we have the sun meeting up with Saturn. So this is really nice for just feeling a bit more confident, a little bit more stable, a little bit more practical, a little bit more grounded and real. You know, it's very determined energy. So if you've been looking to, you know, if there's something going on in your life, you really need to dig deep and you know, like, stick with the program. If you've been wavering with something, this could give you that real reboosting of determination to achieve something that might seem quite far off. It might seem like something that's not easily accessible right now, but it's just saying to you, it's just reminding you of the longer term goals and just re-energizing your determination to just plod and keep going until you achieve that goal. All right, so that's really lovely energy to tap into. And, you know, it is, we've probably gone through a bit of crazy by this point in the week, I think it's fair to say, or we've at least witnessed some crazy playing out in our world. So this could really be a bit of a reality check as well. You know, there's a reason we tell people to sleep on things before they make a decision. And that's because, you know, well, we say, don't we, you know, you'll feel much different about it in the morning, in the light of day. You know, the cold light of day is very kind of sobering. And we need sobering. Neptune has got us all pissed, frankly. You know, Neptune is drunkenness. All right. So, you know, this is sobering energy. It's going to be that kind of, you know, oh yeah, I got a bit carried away, didn't I, with my emotions, and here we are, and it's the cold light of day, and it's like, actually, yeah, it's going to be okay. I can be a little bit more calm and grounded now. So I like it in that respect. It's going to bring a highlight to wherever Aquarius is in your chart. You're going to have Saturn moving through for the next couple of years. And wherever Saturn's moving, it's a call for you to be more, to have to work just a little bit harder. All right, Saturn wants to push you, he's a bit of a taskmaster, going to push you to do some hard work in that area of your chart. So the sun's going to highlight this, but it's also going to highlight where you've met that push to do your work. All right, Saturn is very karmic, very fair. You know, Saturn is going to give you exactly what you've earned. So if you've been doing your work, if you've put in the effort, if you've been responsible and mature and disciplined and respectful, not fearful, slight, you know, there's a nuance there that's lacking at the moment as well. Not fearful of something, but respectful of its power, then this is where you kind of get the sun can bring you the rewards of that effort and that diligence. But, you know, on the downside, like, it's going to highlight to you where you do need to be a little bit more disciplined, or you need to, you know, take your responsibilities and duties a little bit more seriously. So it's going to kind of show up that stuff. Where are you at on your journey at this point in time with Saturn? When the sun lands on Saturn, it could bring those kinds of messages to us. And it can also be highlighting authority figures, be that the government, be that your boss, be that your father, be that a policeman, you know, anything along those lines as well. Saturn is kind of the rules and the authority figures. Because we do need some, you know, we can't just have a free-for-all, unfortunately. There has to be some structure. That keeps us safe. Yeah, highlighting our relationship to duty, work and responsibility, and giving us our karmic returns therein. That's it. Another week. I think that's a nice note to end it on, because it is a little bit more grounded, it is a little bit more realistic, it's a bit more rational, but you know, we're moving into the perfection next week of the Neptune square to the nodes, which is, I think, a point where we'll kind of discover you know, a lot about the fate, the direction we're heading in. So keep grounded, keep safe, keep sensible, keep healthy, look after your body, you know, and just be aware of some of the instability that's around, and get a plan together early on in the week for how you might discharge any of that kind of electricity that's going on. Oh, and do be prepared, you know, just mentioning electricity, you know, electricity issues, we might have issues with electricity and connectivity to the internet and things like that as well, and mobile phone networks. There could be a lot of disruption around those areas of life as well. Anyway, thanks for watching. If this is useful to you, or you value what I do and you want to encourage me a little bit more, and you want to encourage other people to benefit from the wisdom of astrology, please give me a like, or a subscribe is the best thing. Make sure you're following me on Facebook, because I do put an awful lot more out there, and in different formats. And leave me a comment, let me know, you know, what's going on for you, because I really want to help to create a sense of community around astrology. This is the whole Aquarian thing, you know, I've got my little tribe here of people that are really into this stuff and are following it. And I would really love to see more interactions between members of that little tribe as well, encouraging each other on our journey of exploration with the planets. So have a beautiful week, and I will be back next Monday. Lots of love. Take care. Bye.